Important announcements. I know you're all concerned about the current situation with coronavirus.
We're not.
Personally, I'm not. but here are some things that we just need to address. Okay, first, you need to be extra aware. Hopefully, you're already aware that you should wash your hands. Yeah, but a little bit. So,
And if you're sick, don't come here.
if you're sick, stay home.
And if you're talking, hearing somebody
Please wash your hands and please don't touch your face. That is something that we all do a lot. We all like to touch our face. We just like, oh, we got this, or rub our eyes. You've all seen that video of the health officials saying, don't touch your face. Yeah, we all just do it unconsciously, so you need to be more conscious. Everybody, I'm talking. Thank you. Y'all need to be more conscious about what you're doing. Question? Comment?
Yes. So you advise not to come to school if we're sick, but there are a lot of points missing when you don't come.
Like what?
Like mini quizzes.
Mini quizzes are dropped.
Like what?
Mini quizzes are dropped. Thank you, comment.
Because it takes a long time to get better from getting sick. So like that are mini quizzes.
Show me.
Really good.
You have to talk about your situation. You have to talk about your situation. People have notified me that they had to miss class, haven't missed points on the warm-ups. Yeah, you missed points on your mini quizzes, but that'll be dropped at the end of the semester.
Okay, if you're not sick, don't worry about missing points.
Okay, I'm sick. So that's great.
You tell it all over again.
What I said was, if you're sick, yes, you should stay home. If you're ever sick, if you need to miss class, you should let me know as soon as possible. If you don't inform me, then I'm just going to assume you're missing for whatever reason, and you're going to lose points. But if you let me know that you're missing class, then you won't lose points. And if you're missing an assignment, you have the opportunity to make it up for full credit. If you miss class without any excuse, you can still make an assignment, but it won't be full credit. This has been my policy all the time. Yes?
Do you do like makeup for like exams or practicals?
Yeah, for quizzes, I do makeups for quizzes. For practicals, I mean, it's hard. It's doable. It's doable, but again, the sooner you let me know, the better. The sooner you let me know, the better. I can figure out a way. I've done it before. So yes, I can.
You guys are all healthy individuals. Just drink your vitamin C. Like
I need evidence.
Don't worry.
The best thing you can do is communicate with me. You communicate with me to figure something out. What a lot of people do is you don't let me know what's going on in the next senior class, whatever.
Did you have like closing classes?
So, what's going to go on with classes? It's likely, I still haven't gotten full confirmation. It's likely that we're going to miss, we're not miss class, but we're not going to meet face to face. We're still having class, probably. This is going to be online. And labs still might meet. Labs still might meet. We still might meet for tests. Again, I don't have any full confirmation yet, but that's just what I've heard.
I do really bad online classes.
Yeah, regarding the online format, again, if we are, which no confirmation yet, but likelihood is we are for at least a couple of weeks. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Everybody, I'm talking up here still, please. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. This is just, these are weird circumstances.
Is it like a choice? Or like,
A choice to show up in class or not, I don't know. I don't know. I will find out. I'm probably going to be here anyways because I need like to record stuff and do work, so we'll see. I'll let you know. Everyone, please, if you have questions, talk to me, like, stay here so we can all hear, but I need to hear these questions and I'm sure you want to hear the responses, so please say it again.
if we have online classes, how we're doing it.
Yeah, I don't know. How are quizzes going to work? Mini quizzes? I don't know. Regular quizzes, we might still be meeting for labs and assessments. I don't know for sure yet. That's just what I've heard. Yeah, and some credits don't transfer if you miss class. Again, we still might need for labs. I'm not sure. I have to figure that out. And we'll get there when we get there. Yeah.
So for lectures and stuff, would it be possible for us to have like fill the online lectures, you can fill.
No, of course, yeah. So the likelihood is that we won't be face to face for a couple of weeks. I'll still stream classes online. So just like I do with all the other videos, like right now, I'm streaming live. You can watch this on YouTube right now. I'll do the same thing. You can watch it live, and it will be saved so you can watch it later. So it's all there.
So when you stream live, are we open to like ask those questions?
That's a great question. Yeah, you can chat. You can chat here. There's live chat.
So I don't know if this ever happened before, like in your experiences, but for people that get like financial aid for coming to class versus taking online classes, do we still get paid?
Yeah, you can still get paid for even though you're not physically attending class. I have no idea. Hopefully you are, because you're still like we're still saying that you're attending class with us virtually. That's something you'd have to ask whatever agency deals with your financial. I mean, I would be furious if they took that away.
Especially because it's like out of your control.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, if we're still meeting.
Yeah, because like some people have to get their full benefits.
Right.
Face to face.
Yeah.
For at least one class.
I mean, we'll figure that out. Okay, we'll figure that out if we don't get to it. I'll help you out the best way I can.
I know the start.
Sorry?
I know the start.
They'll know by Friday.
Likelihood is next week. When will this start? Likelihood is next week. Again, I have no full confirmation. This is not official. So don't take this as like I know exactly what I'm talking about. Likely next week.
How come you don't have any information?
Because I don't have full information because they haven't given the whole official plan yet. They're still ironing out the details. Really?
Yeah.
What, here?
Yeah. Gone out with the email that, you know.
Oh.
Wait, what did they say?
It might depend on the teacher. I don't know. Some classes are canceled. I don't know.
It's like easier for some classes to be held online in comparison to this one, like, it's really hard.
Yes.
So what about the classes that do get canceled? Like, what about those units, like our credits, like?
What's happening to unit credits? Those are all. I wish I had. I wish I do. I don't know.
There's teachers that refuse to do online. So like, what do you think?
I don't
It's literally not in his control. The district, it's
Yeah.
whatever the district decides. There was like a year last year where like, we were off for a whole week because of the fires.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. So calm down, chill out. Everything's gonna work out for the better.
Like yeah. I mean, obviously. And it's really important that we actually come alive and see things because I don't know how you learn anatomy online. I know there are online anatomy classes, but that doesn't make any sense to me. It exists. I don't get it. Anyways, yeah, that's this one. You know what I know, and we're just gonna go with it and see what happens. I'll let you know the best I can what we can do.
Take a deep breath.
But I'm here to support you. I just want you to not freak out. We'll get through this. We'll figure something out. If we do go online, mostly online, then if you have trouble accessing internet, we'll figure something out. Barely.
So no open cloud.
I don't know. Again, we'll figure it out. I don't see. Like I'd be down to have it. I don't know if I'm legally allowed to. We'll see what you can do. Everyone, I'm still doing this question and answer thing.
I didn't hear the last question.
The question was, will we still have open lab? I don't know.
I don't know if someone's asked this already, but some people are saying that it would last until spring break. Would it be for this class specifically? Would it be until the end of the semester or until?
We don't
No,
know.
no idea.
He doesn't have all the answers.
It would probably go till at least like a week after spring break. That's what I've heard. Like at least 2-3 weeks. But you just have to see what happens with the state of this area.
Just pay attention to campus for updates.
Yes, please always pay attention to canvas and emails for updates from me, from the district. But yeah, I'm waiting to hear from the district too, so I'll let you know when I know. We're supposed to know today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a meeting last time.
So if we were to do online and then we came back, like after a while, would our grading system like kind of go back to how?
How would the grading system change if we go online and come back? I mean, probably I'll just like there would be this point where we don't have any quizzes. Yeah. But I'll figure something out so that your grade isn't like, I obviously don't want it to be negatively affected because of this. So I'm doing that. The facial is a facial expression muscle. I mean, anything on the face is technically a facial expression muscle because if you move it, it changes your expression. I mean, it's also used for chewing. It's also used for chewing. I'm going to use it as a simulator. But in the meantime, please wash your hands. I was in the bathroom yesterday and the dude didn't wash his hands. Really disconcerting, general disconcerting stuff. Like, that's just generally not good. But all right. Question about that? Yeah. Everybody, I need to answer this question.
So the first muscle?
Frontalis.
Yeah. How would I know like if it's frontalis or is the other one like the?
How do you know if it's the frontalis or occipitalis? The frontalis specifically.
The other one with the.
Oh, frontalis is for wrinkling your eyebrows. Corrugator superciliar is for worried face.
Okay.
This is more medial. This is more superior. Yes, really. Okay, yeah, so occipital frontalis versus frontalis, they're connected. Frontalis, occipitalis, it depends on where you read it. Some places say this is all one muscle, and this is just a part of it. Some places say this is one from the other, they're connected by aponeursis. The way I'm teaching is they're separate. It's arbitrary what you call them. It's like saying, are all the abs different muscles, or are they all the same connected? But specifically to your forehead is pectoralis, the frontal belly of the occipital frontalis muscle. Okay. Oh, one more thing. One more announcement. Taking a lot of time on that. We are almost at the halfway point. So I've been having meetings with you. This like quarter, third way point. We're almost at the halfway point. This is the point of the semester where, like, if you're not happy where you are, this is where you need to change what you're doing. So this is my last plea to you all. If you're not happy where you are in this semester, this is where you need to change what you're doing. It's not lost yet. You're not at a grade that you want. There's still a chance to improve. You just need to change what you're doing. What you need to change, you need to make up any assignments that you might be missing. You need to start changing your study habits. If you're just passively reading or listening, that's one thing. You need to actively do something. That involves making study guides, answering the study guide questions, creating your own quizzes. Not just doing other people's quizzes, that's fine, but also making your own. And maybe not the best advice right now, but forming study groups. Maybe virtual study groups, I don't know. Small. People that you trust in testing. Young and healthy. But yeah, you need to say things out loud. You need to physically do things. That's what's going to make the difference. If you're just passively taking things in, it's not going to be enough. So once again, we're almost at the halfway point. This is the time where you need to change something if you're not happy where you are. Okay? Somewhere. Okay. So we talked about axial muscles. There is a little bit of overlap between axial and appendicular, but appendicular means pectoral girdle, so supporting the shoulder, arm muscles, pelvic girdle, leg muscles. So yeah, we're looking at those muscles, and we'll see that in the lab. In lab today and tomorrow, we will look at the cadaver. And we'll look into different muscles. So, what are appendicular muscles for? They're for moving the limbs and joints around, like putting a glass down and pouring a beer, or dancing. That's what appendicular muscles are for, right? And a bunch of other things. But these are two important things in life, right? Yeah, beer and dancing. Right, yeah, so we're going to go over these muscles. Muscles that help stabilize your pectoral and pelvic girdles. Pectoral girdle means shoulder area. Pelvic girdle means pelvic area. Help you move your limbs. They help you absorb shock when you walk, run, jump, fall. And when we say strengthen joints, what we really mean is strengthen the muscles around the joints. You can't physically strengthen the synovial membrane or anything. So that's what we're discussing, what we're focusing on in this part of the unit. All right. First muscle. We've mentioned it before because it is kind of axial, but it's also part of the pelvic girdle. That's the trapezius. So if your neck's here, the trapezius is this muscle. It goes all the way down the back. So it's attached to the neck region, all the way down the spine, the vertebrae, and to the scapula. So it's great for moving your neck, extending your neck, but it's also good for elevating your shoulders, for elevating your acromioclavicular joint, moving your scapula, rotating and elevating your scapula. I should put elevate there too. I don't know why it's not there. It is a very large and superficial muscle. Superficial meaning you can, once you peel the skin away, it's right there. Yes.
Why is it that when you train the trapezius, it's only like the most superior part that's bigger?
When you train the trapezius, why is it only the most superior part, this part here that looks bigger? It's just because it's more exposed. There's nothing else here but this muscle. I mean, you obviously have this muscle back here, like there, but it's kind of like, think of it as like flattened out. Like you have the most sort of see and visualize up here. But I mean, it'll still get stronger back there if you really work at it. If you peel away, if you reflect this muscle, so if you go look deeper to it, you'll see more muscle. So peel away the trapezius and you'll see more muscle. These muscles are the rhomboids. Color. And they're called that because they're parallelograms. They're not quite rhombus shaped. I mean, this one is more so than the other one, but these are the rhomboids. A rhomboid is a parallelogram, like a square, but if you just kind of skewed it a little bit, a little rhomboid. Yeah. Okay. Geometry.
That's a rhombus.
This is a rhombus. Yeah. So the rhomboid major, the major's on bottom. Remember, whenever they come in pairs, the major is usually lower down. Major and minor. They're both attached to that medial border of the scapula. So the scapula is right here. You can see that they've been cut. They would be attached right here. They're for adducting the scapula. So they're for adduction. Adducting scapula.
So the major is on top, the minor is on top.
Major is inferior, minor is on top. So the larger one is always lower down. Think of it like a pyramid. The larger part is always lower down. Just like with the zygomaticus minor and major, minor is on top, major is on bottom. Same thing here. Sign.
Is there any purpose to
Purpose to.
why the major is always at the bottom?
Why is the major always larger at the bottom? If you think of it intuitively, because it's lower down, there's more gravity. More gravity means it has to pull more. You need a stronger muscle. That's how I think of it.
Is there origin as the scapula, or is it the insertion?
Is the scapula the origin of the insertion? Since it's pulling the scapula, this is the insertion.
Do they like do different things or do they?
Do they do different things? Not really. They do most of the same thing. Just one's a little higher up, and they're both pulling in the same direction. Okay. Another muscle in this area is the levator scapulae, which hopefully it's pretty obvious by the name what it does. It raises the scapula. It's attached. It's right here. Here's the medial board of the scapula, and it extends up towards the neck. So it's like, here's the scapula. Here's scapula. It's right here. It's deeper. Again, all these muscles that are drawn here, the levator scapulae, rhomboid minor, rhomboid major, they're deep to the trapezius. It elevates the scapula, so it also helps with the shrugging. Trapezius is the major one, but this also helps. That's all on the back side, on the dorsal side, posterior. When you get knots, my basic understanding of knots, which I don't think is fully understood, was that, remember we talked about sarcomeres and how they can contract, or they can slide over and then go back and forth? If they stay contracted and they don't relax, that I believe is a knot. And there's different ideas of why that happens. So that's all on the posterior, the dorsal side. If we go on the anterior side, there's some more muscles to point out. You all know pec major. We'll talk about pectoralis major coming up in a minute, but if you peel away the pectoralis major, you'll find a muscle that's attached to the ribs and the shoulder area. This is the pectoralis minor, so it's deeper to the major. Pectoralis minor protracts the shoulder. The protraction of the acromioclavicular joint. So you can see it's attached to these initial ribs and then going to the shoulder. You go a little farther down, like right here along the ribs, and a bit more lateral. It has this serrated look, serrated like a knife, like a steak knife. This is called the Serratus Anterior. So pectoralis minor is right here. Serratus anterior is a little more inferior and a bit more lateral. Serratus anterior also helps with contraction. So this is pointed out pectoralis minor, serratus anterior down here. What all these have in common is that they're supporting the scapula and clavicle. So they're supporting the scapula and or clavicle, and they attach to the vertebrae and or ribs. They're attached to one of those things in that region surrounding the shoulder.
I would use the last one. How does, if it's so well or inferior, how does it protect the scapula?
If this muscle is so inferior, how does it protect the scapula? So this is the anterior side. It attaches to the ribs and then goes up to the scapula, and then so it contracts fully. So I guess it's like a little more down to it, but it's still pulling forward. After every slide, I'm going to show you some exercises you can do. I hope this helps you visualize how you use them. Like if you want to work your rhomboids in your trapezius, you can do these flies. I don't know what the special word for this is. I couldn't find a specific exercise for pectoralis minor, but you can stretch out your pectoralis minor if you put your hand on the wall and just turn a little bit. Stretch that out. You can work out, among other muscles, you can get your serratus anterior by doing a press, an upward press, and here's a pull down, which you can get your trapezius as well as other muscles. Whenever you do exercises, it's never just one muscle you're working on. There's always a group of muscles that you're working on. I also suggest that you check out this website. It has really good diagrams of muscles and which ones you use for different exercises. What's it called? weighttrainingguide.com or something? Yeah. Okay. So those are muscles that support the shoulder. These muscles move the arm. When I say move the arm, I mean we're focusing on moving the brachial region. I'm not talking about the elbow, I'm not talking about the wrist. Moving this somehow. First muscle, anterior side, large muscle in front, Pectoralis Major. Pectoralis Major does a lot. It can help adduct, so like if you want to do a fly type movement. Helps you flex at the glenohumeral joint. Helps you medially rotate. You probably know this muscle best as one for bench press or for push-ups. On the back side, so posterior view, the big wide muscle in the back, that's Latissimus Dorsi. That's exactly what it means. Wide, large muscle in the back. Latissimus Dorsi. You know this muscle is what you use for rowing or for pull-ups. So it's good for extension. We talked about that last time. So it is part of the axial musculature. It's good for extension of the vertebrae. It can also help with adduction, help with medial rotation. Deltoids, that's a major shoulder muscle, which makes sense since this is the deltoid region. Deltoids help with abduction. So start here, coming out this way, you're working your deltoids.
Deltoids.
Well, there are two, so deltoids.
Oh.
Yeah, one deltoid, two deltoids. Yeah. Okay. So this half here, this is showing the deltoid, which is superficial. This is showing the Latissimus Dorsi, which is superficial. The trapezius would go it would cover up a little bit of the Latissimus Dorsi, so the trapezius has been removed. If you peel away the Latissimus Dorsi, we get a deeper dissection. Here's the scapula. We can see that there's several muscles here. There's a muscle here. Here's the spine. There's another muscle here. There's another muscle here. And there's one last muscle attached to this most inferior point. Attached to the most inferior point, going and attaching to the humerus. This most inferior one is teres major. Remember, major is always the lower one down. Teres means round. It's a round, largish, not really, muscle. It's larger than this, I guess. Teres major. Because it's attached here at the scapula and to, it's not attached at the head or tubercle, it's attached a little bit more distal on the humerus. Because it's attached a bit lower down, it can be used for extension, so this way, and also medial rotation. Extension, medial rotation. So don't forget all those joint movements. We went over that for a reason, because we want to know what the muscles do. You should be able to pair the muscle name with what it does. You all see my dad's online?
Yes.
Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Again, some examples. You can even work your, of course, you can work your Pectoralis Major with a bench press. If you can do this, like, again, there are a million exercises you can do, but here's an example how you can work out your deltoid, this kind of exercise, and then that lat pull down. Mostly works your lats. Yes?
So people that typically refer to the lat as like pretty superior, I feel like just inferior to the deltoid. Is that actually the teres major?
Teres major?
Teres major.
Is it actually the teres major if you see like this large muscle?
Yeah, it's like the one that comes out right.
Yeah, you know what? I need to look more at bodybuilder pictures. I'm not sure. But my guess would be is that the Latissimus Dorsi is covering that.
Okay.
Because Latissimus Dorsi is pretty superficial. To see teres major, you have to peel away.
It's just like when you like activate your lats and you puff up, I didn't know that the Latissimus Dorsi, because it doesn't look like it goes all the way up.
Latissimus Dorsi, so the Latissimus Dorsi, how is it attached? How does it make it look like it's big here? Like, have you ever seen, whether bodybuilders or even climbers or rowers, or swimmers, they have really big backs. They're using the Latissimus Dorsi a lot. This attaches, it inserts to the humerus. The Latissimus Dorsi inserts to the humerus. So if it gets really big, it can expand very wide here. So my guess is Latissimus Dorsi. What do you mean? Every single muscle that we've gone over, do we memorize them? The ones that I go over, yes. The ones that I go over. The ones that are listed in the study guide, as is always the case. There's a lot more muscles that are not going over. Yes.
Does the major, is that just located
Pectoralis major, does it go down the arm? It doesn't go down the arm, no. It's here in the pectoral area, but it does attach to the humerus. So it's right across there. Okay. Those were how many muscles did we just go over? Four? Four. Okay, those are four muscles that move the arm. There are four more muscles that move the arm, but they're special because they also help with rotation. Rotation and stability. Altogether, they're known as your rotator cuff muscles. So when you say you've torn your rotator cuff or you're warming up your rotator cuff, what you mean is you're warming up these four muscles. There are four muscles called rotator cuff muscles. They all have in common their tubercle or the lesser tubercle. Lesser is anterior, greater than the lateral. So the head, this is the left humerus. Like here's the lesser tubercle, here's the greater tubercle. It's attached to one of these points. Teres major is not a rotator cuff muscle. Teres major attaches a bit lower down. So it is not considered a rotator cuff muscle. But teres minor is. If you look at the back, here's the scapula. Here's teres major, which is attached to the most inferior part of the scapula. Teres minor is the small one just above it. And you can see it's attaching more proximal to the head. So that's that slight difference that makes that we have a different classification for it, and it does something different. Teres major was for medially rotating. Teres minor is for laterally externally rotating. So they do opposite things. They are antagonists. So teres minor is one rotator cuff muscle. This muscle right here, it's below the spine of the scapula, so it's called the infraspinatus. Here's that spine of the scapula. It's in the it's in this fossa right here. This is the infraspinatus. The one above the spine, that's the supraspinatus. Named after where they're located. Infraspinatus and teres minor are both for externally rotating. Supraspinatus can also abduct, help with abduction. Oh yes, yeah. So supra. So the question is, like, you see three lines here. This whole thing, where all three lines are, this whole thing is infra. So we've gone from supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and then not included in the rotator cuff group, teres major. That's all on the posterior side of the scapula.
Superspinatus abduct. Is that so? It's a rotating cuff and.
Yes, supraspinatus is a rotator cuff muscle, and it also helps abduct. So it helps with the double. Okay. So all of those three muscles were on the posterior side. But if we look on the anterior side, there's one more muscle, because remember the scapula has two sides. On the anterior side of the scapula, so this is pretty deep. Like if you look behind the ribs, this makes more sense. You can actually see the skeleton. So we've cut away the ribs here, and we're looking at the anterior side of the scapula. There's a muscle sitting in that nice large fossa. If you remember, that fossa was called the subscapular fossa. This is the subscapularis. So subscapularis, I know it's not too intuitive with this name. Subscapularis is on the anterior side. Superspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor on the posterior side. Those four make up the rotator cuff muscles. Yes.
So like I overuse my rotator cuff muscles, and I wondered about what the doctor said that like the bigger muscles are overpowering my little muscles. So what muscles?
I'm just saying your bigger muscles. What do they mean by that in terms of your injury? I'm not entirely sure. All I can guess is that what they're saying is that you need to strengthen your rotator cuff muscles. That's what it sounds like.
Okay. I didn't know if there was like,
Maybe it's just the relationship between the two. Ones like comparatively, the rotator cuffs are weaker compared to the stronger muscles, like that's why they're lats. It just sounds like
I just laid to me. I was like, oh, I know.
it just sounds like you need to strengthen those muscles. That's what it sounds like. And that needs to be a gradual process. Yes.
So the subscapularis is on the anterior side of the scapula.
Yeah, to repeat that, the subscapularis is on the anterior side of the scapula. If you remember the scapula, like on the back side, you got that spine, so it's divided into two parts, but on the other side, it's just nice and flat. It's just sitting in that spot.
What happens when you like strain?
What happens when you strain a muscle? You're tearing the muscle fibers, you're tearing the tendons, connective tissue. Okay.
So the first three muscles are on the posterior side?
Yes, to repeat that, the first three muscles, supraspinatus, this is the posterior view. Superspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, they're all on the posterior side. You can see them best from the posterior view. Subscapularis, best seen from an anterior. I couldn't find a workout specific to subscapularis, but you can stretch it by pulling like this. I mean, you can stretch lots of things, but subscapularis is there. You work your teres minor and infraspinatus, doing this side fly thing. I don't know what to call it. And then this kind of abduction exercise for your supraspinatus. Okay. We talked about stabilization of the shoulder area. We talked about moving the humerus, so the glenohumeral joint. What about the humeral ulnar joints or your carpal joints, intercarpals and so on? Well, let's talk about humeral ulnar first. There's several muscles in this arm. We're only going to focus on these 5 in this brachial region. There are more muscles that we're not going over, like Brachialis or supinator or whatever. We're just going over these. On the anterior side, if this is the humerus, here's the ulna, I don't know what to draw this, radius, okay, great. So here's your humerus and scapula. It's not a good scapula. All right. Remember that you have the acromion process, that's for the clavicle. What's the other thing that protrudes out anteriorly on the scapula? The coracoid process. These muscles are attaching to that coracoid process. These muscles here on the left. At least the top two, Biceps brachii and brachialis. Let's go over brachialis first. Brachialis is a wide, flat muscle. Brachialis is a wide, flat muscle. And as the name implies, it's in the brachial region. And so since it's right here, when it contracts, you're flexing your humeral ulnar joint. The brachialis is sitting underneath, it's deep to. The brachialis is deep to the biceps brachii. Biceps brachii is sitting on top, superficial, the brachialis. It's called biceps because there are 2 heads to it. It has 2 attachment points, but I'm not going to test you on the long or short heads or whatever. But biceps brachii is more superficial. Brachialis is underneath it. Brachialis is underneath it. They both do the same thing. They're both for flexing the humeral ligament. Question? I'm good in that second. I think it's about here. It's not parallel. Tendon.
Is that
It has a tendon. We'll talk about that later. So, biceps brachii, superficial, brachialis a little bit deeper. Going a little bit down the arm, but it's still attached in the brachial region, but it's also attached in the antebrachial region. So it attaches from the humerus down to the radius. It's the Brachioradialis. It's this forearm muscle right here. This one that you can feel right here. That's your Brachioradialis. It's called that because it extends from the brachial region down to the radius. But all three, they're all for flexing. They all help with flexing of the humeral joint. Those are anterior ones. And as you notice, all these anterior ones on the brachial region, they're all for flexing. On the back side, on the posterior side, that'll be for extension. That's your triceps brachii. Triceps, because there are three heads. I'm not going to test on each individual head. I just want you to know that this posterior view, you can see that there's one, two, there's another head hiding underneath, but it has three parts to it. That's why it's called triceps. And it's for extension at the humeral joint.
For all these muscles in at least in the arm, are we gonna have to know the shapes of them?
Well, you have to know the shapes of them. I'm not going to stress that, no. I'm going to stress naming, location, function. But it doesn't hurt to know origins, insertions. It doesn't hurt to know shape because it tells you about its function. It tells you about its location.
So when people jam their finger, like what?
You jam your finger, that's more like a joint issue.
You said that is that more lateral?
Brachioradialis is it is pretty lateral, yes. So in anatomical position, it's this one right here. So it's pretty lateral and it's attaching again both the humerus and radius. It's lateral and more distal than the other two.
Okay. And then it goes brachialis.
Biceps brachii, brachialis, brachioradialis. This is brachioradialis. See how far down it goes? This tendon goes all the way to the wrist.
Okay.
You probably know how to work this out. You can do curls to work your biceps as well as your brachialis and brachioradialis. Tons of exercises you can do for your triceps. This is just one. Oh, I forgot to go over one more muscle. One more muscle that I want you to know. It does come in a pair, but I just want you to know one of them. The pronator teres. Where are you? The pronator teres attaches from the medial portion of your humerus and goes across to the radius. So that when it contracts, you turn your wrist over. Pronation. What does teres mean again? Round. It's a round muscle that pronates. Pronator teres. There is a supinator muscle. I'm not going to test you on it, but there is. Is it listed here? But pronator teres, it's on the anterior side, from medial to lateral. So that you rotate or turn over your hand. So a muscle or an exercise that you can do is simply turning. Okay. Moving our way down, or distally, I should say. Support the shoulder, rotated the shoulder, supported, move the brachial region, move the humeral joint. Now we're moving the carpals and phalanges. These are forearm muscles, antebrachial muscles, and move the hand and fingers. There's a lot of muscles in this region. The more distal you go, the smaller the muscles get, because there's not as much here, and you need finer movements. There's a lot of muscles that we're not going over. Anything that's not highlighted, besides up here, anything that's not highlighted down here, we're not going over. So these three muscles, I want you to know. We're going to go over the three of the major ones on each side. So to flex at the wrist, the term for that is Flexor Carpi. You've got one muscle that's towards the ulnar side, so that's Flexor Carpi ulnaris. You've got one muscle that's towards the radial side, so that's Flexor Carpi radialis. The one in the middle, if you trace from the fingers from 2 through 4, you can see that there's these tendons converge to a single muscle. That's your Palmaris Longus. Follow from your palm, and there's a really long tendon. If you go like this, you can see the tendon cord. There might be 1 or 2 of you in this class who don't have it. It's a very small, weak muscle, so if you don't have it, it's not the end of the world, but there are some people who don't have this muscle. And I have it.
Of course, that's not.
Why? So just evolutionarily, it's just the other muscles do most of the work. So
You mean it's like not
it's
there?
not there. Yeah, it's just the tendon cord.
So you can see it.
Yeah. Palmaris Longus is right here. See that tendon? There.
You don't have it.
Yeah, I feel like you got two.
Oh, they're fine. I'm too fast to see it.
Oh, those are the one that pops up the most.
Oh.
All right. So those are the three I want you to know in order. And here's a guide. The two things I use to orient myself. One, look for the Brachioradialis. That's going to be the larger one, most lateral. Brachioradialis. Next to Brachioradialis is Flexor Carpi radialis. So here's Flexor Carpi radialis. Palmaris Longus is another useful guide. When we're looking to get at her, look at the palm, trace these 4 tendons, they converge. This is Palmaris Longus. And then lateral to that, on the ulnar side, is Flexor Carpi ulnaris. It's on this side, the palmar side. Know that these are the 3 I'm looking for. I mean, 4, I guess, because of the break. With our cadavers, they're not perfectly in anatomical position. If they're lying face up, their palms are probably down. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to the position of the palm. So look for the palm. Trace that. Trace that up. Oh, what's holding all this together, like these tendons have to be kept down and in line. You've got this connective tissue. It's like a fascia. This is called the Flexor Retinaculum. Flexor Retinaculum. Jessica, yes.
So it's fascia or fascias, it's not also dense regular?
Yeah, is fascia also dense regular? It is. So it's just holding the tendons in place on this anterior side.
All the like white parts are the epicranial neurosis.
Where?
Like by the
All these white parts here, these are tendons. Epicranial means on top of the head. So this is the epicranial epineurosis. Epineurosis means muscle to muscle, but this is muscle to bone. We're connecting to bone.
There's only so much extra thickness.
Is there why is there extra thickness in your wrist? It's not cartilage.
What is it? It's holding it.
It's fascia. It's like that's regular.
Oh, okay.
But this is just to hold your tendons and nerves and stuff down.
That's the real shiny stuff.
Real shiny stuff. Yes.
So like where the triceps brachii and the biceps brachii come together, is that an aponeurosis, like where the 2 heads come together?
With the insertion point where it comes together is that aponeurosis? No, if it's touching bone, it's not aponeurosis. It's only muscle to muscle. And the two that I want you to know are the epicranial and the abdominal.
So fascia, like when you look at the cadaver, it's like hella thin. How that?
Is it thin?
I feel like
Is the fascia thin? It just depends on the muscle of the person, I guess. It just depends. It's pretty thick down here when we we'll take a look.
yeah, it was like somewhere else.
Yeah. And that's,
So when working out, I don't know like if this is the reason why, but if something's like too heavy for you to lift, like you start vibrating, or like
you're shaking.
does that come from the muscle?
Why do you shake when you're trying to lift something and it's hard? You'll learn about this in physiology. The short answer is your motor units are alternating to try to build that. That's the short answer.
So
If it's fatigue in your motor units, it's working really hard to fire and create that tension.
okay.
What is it?
I don't know. That's what happened.
This one.
There's other muscles that we can go over. There's other muscles. All right, those are all flexors. Those are all wrist flexors. How about extensors? There's three on the posterior side that I want you to know. Again, there are other muscles here, but we're not going to go over all of them. There are three muscles on the posterior side, three extensor muscles that I want you to know. To orient yourself, here's the posterior arm, here's that brachioradialis again. This brachioradialis starts here but then wraps around. So you can see the brachioradialis here. Just next to brachioradialis on the posterior side is the extensor carpi radialis, and you need to say this last one, longus. Extensor carpi radialis longus, because there is a brevis, and we're not going over the brevis. Brevis means short. Like brief, brief, short. Yes. Question?
Can you distinguish between the brachioradialis and the extensor, like just on your model there?
Okay, so brachioradialis they're right next to each other. Brachioradialis is right here, and then here's extensor carpi radialis longus. I'll point it out on the models in class too, and it's already recorded.
So it's like the same muscle?
No, they are different muscles. Brachioradialis and extensor carpi radialis longus are different muscles because they're right next to each other, but they insert into different places.
So all the flexors are anterior, and all the extensors are posterior.
Yes. To repeat that, all the flexors are anterior, all the extensors are posterior. You're going to see a trend like that when we get to the legs too, but it won't be exactly the same because the legs are oriented a little bit differently. But there's always a trend that if it's on one side, it does one thing. That is a trend. Yes. You have an extensor carpi radialis longus. Sorry, you have an extensor carpi radialis longus here. You have an extensor carpi ulnaris, just ulnaris on the ulnar side, and that's where are we? All right. Wait. Yeah, that's right here. Extensor carpi ulnaris right here. In the middle, again, look for the fingers. This is how I orient myself. Look for the fingers. Look at the tendons. They combine and join to one muscle. This is the extensor digitorum. Extensor digitorum, there it is. It's extending the digits, extending your fingers. So for me, when I'm orienting myself on the cadaver or on the models, I always look for Palmaris Longus on the anterior side and extensor digitorum on the posterior side, because they show me the center, and then I can move out from there. Just like we had a flexor retinaculum on the front, on the anterior side, we've got an extensor retinaculum on the back. So you basically have fascia wrapping on the whole thing. Yes. On our cadavers, if we've loosened up the muscles, the tissue is strong enough, if you pull on a tendon, it will lose the muscle.
Can you please go over how to differentiate the extensor carpi ulnaris?
Yeah, okay, so look, how do you find the extensor carpi ulnaris? Let's first look for extensor digitorum. You find that by looking for the fingers, tracing that. Here's extensor digitorum. You want to go, if this is extensor digitorum, to find ulnaris, you want to go to the pinky side this way.
So is that visible?
Is it always that visible?
Yeah.
Yes, it's cut properly. Yes. We have one that's already dissected, so I'll point it out. Again, lots of other muscles in the hand and arm. We're not going over them. There's a lot. We're just going to focus on these. Like Isabel noticed, flexors are found in the anterior compartment. Extensors are found in the posterior compartment. If you do a cross section of an arm at different points, you can find a trend. Like in the brachial region, your biceps are for flexing, your triceps are for extending. In the antebrachial region, your flexors are for flexing, your extensors are for extending. That's true for the arm. It differs for the leg. This is true for the arm. That flexor retinaculum, if this is my right hand, you can see the flexor retinaculum covering, like holding the tendons down. These are tendons right here. And here you can see the carpal bones forming that carpal tunnel. So the flexor retinaculum is covering that carpal tunnel. While protective, this is not very protective. This is a very vulnerable area because there's no bone here. Just like our abdomen, it's pretty exposed. It's a vulnerable area. Which is why if you push down on it a lot for prolonged periods of time, that can lead to swelling or degeneration of the tendons and nerves, which can be very painful. Yeah, that's what carpal tunnel syndrome is. Why is this area vulnerable? There's no bone here. Just retinaculum, which is still it's pretty soft.
So how do you, if it's like, if you're like pushing on it, it makes it weaker, right? Use carpal tunnel. How does typing lead to carpal tunnel? If you're only
Why does typing lead to carpal tunnel? Your wrist, if your wrists are in a bad position, there's a lot of pressure here. Just, I don't know, do you still have typing classes? Like you're supposed to type with a certain posture, ergonomically, yeah. And they have those like wrist pads for like people who don't type all day. For piano, well, with piano, are you resting your wrist?
No.
When people type, sometimes they rest their wrist, and that's the problem because they have that pressure. All right, reveal a little bit.
Oh, we're all doing.
Yeah.
Is Chad, if you need more time? Second. Look at this. So I'm going to talk about, well, yeah, we're already here. I'm talking about this motion specifically from here to here. This motion. What is that?
no overlap. Yeah, no overlap. Like you say.
Use numbers. We tried like inventing another language. You heard Esperanto? You never heard of Esperanto? Look it up. On three, flutter. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. The only flexor of the wrist shown here is Palmaris Longus. A Flexor Carpi, Flexor Carpi Radialis. Those also work, but they're not listed here. So Palmaris Longus is the flex of the wrist. In preparation. Preparation means you start here, you end here. In preparation for a forehand. So start here, end here.
I don't know what
So start here, end here. We're winding up. This is here to there. I'm saying you're preparing for it. You're preparing. Preparation for it. You're winding up. Yes. Raise your hand a few more times. 10 more seconds. 10 more seconds. Extension, flexion. Okay, wherever you're at, let's see what you got. Hands up 3, 1, 2, 3. We're split. Okay, talk to someone with an answer real quick. Talk to someone with a different answer. Move if you need to. Talk to another table. Okay, one more time, please. Hands up 3, 1, 2, 3. No split. Okay. We're starting here. We're ending here. What movement is that? External rotation. This is extension. This is external rotation. External rotation, that's going to be a rotator cuff muscle. Which one of these is a rotator cuff muscle? Infraspinatus. Good job. Infraspinatus, yeah. This is one reason why people who play tennis or other sports where you're rotating a lot, they have a rotator cuff injury. Yeah, could it have been minor? It could have been minor. It could have been superspinatus. Yes. What was the movement? This is so from here to here. It's external rotation. If it was medial internal rotation, then major would have worked. But this is external.
So if you would have said,
if I say you're going forward, yeah. Your elbow is just like your knee. Your ankles are just like your wrists. There's similarities. Yeah.
It's a cool muscle.
Cool muscle. It is. It's super cool. Okay. Where's my pointer? Where is it? It's this one that's most lateral here. It's basically your hip flexor muscle. It's lateral, even a little bit anterior. It's right here. Your tensor fasciae. This muscle is used for extending your knee and for laterally rotating. So extend the large butt muscle. So you can see it from the side, see it here from the, well, it's cut. Oh, yeah. Here's a superficial dissection. The large muscle here. It's not the most superior. Gluteus medius is actually a little bit more superior, but it's the largest one and more medial. I don't know if that word helps. It's the largest one. It's the largest and most superficial. The largest and most superficial. What the gluteus maximus does, it helps you extend. So this movement, and also lateral rotation. Both the tensor fasciae and the gluteus maximus, you can see here and here, they combine to this one really thick and large tendon. It goes from the ilium, so you can see it's connecting here at the ilium, connecting all the way down to the tibia. So it's known as your iliotibial tract. Some of you have heard of this before, but call it something else. The IT guys. I want you to know this term though. It makes sense. Iliotibial tract. The tibia. The iliotibial tract. Really thick, large tendon that runs all the way down your leg. Yeah.
Does it cross two joints?
There's a cross two joints. Yes, it's at your acetabular joint and at the patellofemoral tibial. So if you've got like IT band issues, like you roll out, I don't know, one of those foam rollers, you're trying to loosen up that tendon. There are muscles deep to the tendon. We will be going over that next. There are muscles deep to that. Last thing, you have a maximus, tensor fasciae. If you cut away the maximus, you can better see the medius. You can see the medius peeking out right here, but you can better see the medius if you peel away the maximus. It's this medium-sized muscle. Minimus is very small. Minimus is very small. It connects here to this greater trochanter. Medius and minimus are for abduction and medial rotation. So they're opposite of these two. These are external rotation. These are internal medial rotation. It's connecting to the greater trochanter. All right, thank you, everyone. I'll see you in lab, I hope. Yeah, we'll discuss things later. Thanks. Yeah.
Can I, if you still have lab tomorrow, I did get your email, so can I stop by tomorrow after class to discuss my grade?
Yeah.